McLaren's call on Sunday lit a fuse that is still burning. Oscar Piastri played it cool on the radio and in parc fermé, yet every line since has carried the same subtext. He doesn't believe he did anything wrong, and he resents paying a price for someone else's misfortune. That feeling isn't unique to him. Mark Webber has been blunt about what he sees as creeping favoritism, and when a driver's manager knows that terrain as intimately as Webber does, his antenna goes up quickly. Damon Hill weighed in too, and the reaction he drew from fans shows this is bigger than one slow wheel nut. The sequence was simple on paper, but loaded in practice. Lando Norris was running second behind Max Verstappen. McLaren planned to pit both cars late, with Oscar Piastri stopping first to cover Charles Leclerc. Over radio, Will Joseph told Norris there would be no undercut. Norris asked the obvious question. Joseph confirmed the plan, and the die was cast. Piastri stopped and nailed a 1.9-second service. Norris arrived next and lost 4 seconds to a sticky front left. He rejoined behind his teammate. In pure sporting terms, that's racing. In contractual terms, McLaren had already promised the order would be preserved. What came next was the flashpoint. Tom Stallard told Piastri to hand the place back. Piastri's reply cut through the noise. They had agreed that slow stops are part of racing. So, what changed? He still complied, which is telling. A young driver in a title fight will swallow a bitter pill for the bigger picture, but the taste lingers. Andrea Stella later framed the decision as adherence to principles. The team had sequenced the stops to serve its interests. The intent was not to change positions. Since the slow stop flipped the cars, restoring the pre-pit order was, in Stella's words, the fair thing to do, then let them race. If you take McLaren at its word, this is about trust. Norris was promised no undercut, and the team had to stand by that promise even when fate intervened. If you take the racer's view, this is about risk, reward, and consequence. Piastri and his crew executed, and the clock rewarded them. A 4-second delay is part of the sport's rough edges, the same way gusts of wind and late virtual safety cars are. The tension between those two logics will define how the story reads in a month's time. Public sentiment didn't split down the middle. Hill poked at the policy with a tongue-in-cheek anecdote from 1993 and ran a poll. A clear majority said they weren't happy with the order. Humor aside, that result tracks with the gut reaction of many fans. Team orders are tolerated when a title is on the line and one car is mathematically preferred. They're accepted when strategy is crystal clear, but they're resented when they appear to sand down a genuine sporting outcome that unfolded on merit. Stella's counter is consistent, if nothing else. He stressed that the choice to pit Piastri first and delay Norris was driven by race control risk and Ferrari coverage, and that the team had been explicit with both drivers that sequencing would not flip track position. In that frame, restoring Norris to second wasn't a gift. It was a return to the baseline that had been contractually set between the pit wall and its drivers. He also said the team will review the principles again, both for slow stops in isolation and for stop sequencing, and align with the drivers. That suggests the rulebook is still being written. The standings add spice. Piastri left Monza with his lead trimmed to 31 points, 8 races to go. The number is still healthy, but the tone shifted. When a driver loses 3 points after delivering a clean, clinical Sunday, it compresses the mental margins. That's where Webber's voice matters. He has lived the worst version of this movie. He knows how small moments accumulate into narratives of preference, sometimes fairly, often not. When he says the points gap understates Piastri's control miles, he's making a technical case for respect, not a nationalistic plea. Norris, for his part, tried to lance the boil before it formed. He dismissed the idea that his mentality is soft, admitted he admires the flintier edge of drivers like Verstappen, and insisted he wants to win in his own way. That honesty is part of why the dynamic has stayed civil inside McLaren. Piastri is measured. Norris is more outwardly emotional. Both are fast enough to beat the other on any given Sunday. When two talents overlap that tightly, the team lives or dies by its ability to communicate boundaries in plain language before the lights go out. This is where the fan debate often goes sideways. People want villains. Webber as aggrieved conciliere, Norris as protected asset, Piastri as wrong champion-elect, McLaren as either principled or manipulative. The first stop was flawless at 1.9 seconds. The second car lost 4 seconds to a sticky tyre and rejoined behind its teammate. In sporting terms, That's racing. But in contractual terms, the team had promised the order would be preserved. What came next was the flashpoint. Instructions were given to switch positions back. The reply was sharp. Slow stops are part of racing, so why change now? Still, the driver complied, a telling sign of maturity and focus on the bigger picture. Later, management framed the decision as adherence to principles. The team had sequenced the stops for overall strategy, not to swap position. Since the slow stop flipped the order, restoring the pre-pit order was described as the fair thing to do, before letting them race freely again. If you take the team's view, this is about trust. A promise was made, and they stood by it. If you take the racer's view, it's about risk, reward, and consequence. Execution deserves reward, and slow stops are simply part of the sport. This tension will define how the story is read in the weeks ahead. Public reaction leaned toward frustration with the decision, showing how sensitive fans are to the balance between racing purity and team orders. Management stressed that the choice to pit in that order was based on strategy risks and covering rivals, and that the drivers had been told it would not change track position. In that frame, restoring the original order wasn't a gift, it was a return to the agreed baseline. The team also said they will review the principles again, both for slow stops and pit sequencing. That suggests the rulebook is still being written. The standings add more weight, the points lead was reduced, and while it remains healthy, the tone has shifted. Small decisions like this compress the mental margins, and that pressure can shape the narrative of a season. Both drivers have different personalities, one measured, one more emotional, but both are quick enough to beat the other on any given day. With such closely matched talent, clear rules and transparent communication are essential. The fan debate often looks for villains, but the reality is more fragile. A team in a championship fight needs rules that both drivers believe are symmetrical. The moment one side thinks the balance is tilted, performance suffers. The bigger picture is simple. Keep the playing field even and the drivers will stay focused. Lose consistency and every pit stop or strategy call will be seen as bias.